Okay, we're really rolling our sleeves up now and going to work. Now friends, the fact that you're watching this video is really exciting to me. It means that you're interested in doing the work required to tell your amazing JCI story to the world. And the world's gonna love your story. Now, I'm gonna walk you through some tips and procedures that will help you submit your story in the best possible light. That's a good light. First of all, videos and documentaries are made up of many different components, all woven together to best tell a story. But you'll only be responsible for 3 of those. And they are copy, or the written story, photos, and video. Pretty simple. Okay, so copy. On the submission page, we're gonna ask you to share a Google Doc with an overview of your story. We'd like you to keep it under 1 page if possible. So why a Google Doc and not just send in a Word doc or a PDF? Well, with a Word document, we might not all have the same software. And we're gonna need to cut and paste your beautiful writing, which isn't always an option with a PDF. So when writing your overview of the project, make sure the following questions are answered. Who are the key players in your project? What need does the project service? Who does the project serve? When did it take place? What was accomplished? How did it benefit your community? How does the accomplishment create sustainable positive change? All right, let's move on to photos. Look, these days you can take almost as high a quality photos with your phone as you can with like an expensive camera like these. And it's likely that most people involved in your project snapped a few photos anyway. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is gather as many photos as you can and decide which ones best tell your story. Now, I'd highly recommend submitting photos that show members in action as much as possible. While we all like to take the typical photo with everyone posing for the camera, it's just not as impactful at helping to tell your story. Viewers want to see the project in action, see the goal being accomplished, and, if possible, see the effects, whether that be an image of something you've built or simply the smiling faces of someone you've helped. Action, accomplishments, impact. My favorite content, video. Look, gathering great video content's a lot easier than you think. For the purposes of the impact factor, you'll just need to consider 2 types of video content, okay? B-roll and interviews. B-roll simply means footage of the action. If your project is digging a well, just get all kinds of shots of the action. Now here are a few tips that you can consider that will help you gather great B-roll. Make sure you always include a nice wide shot of the action to establish the scene, right? It's also good to come in a little closer to show the faces of those involved. I also recommend keeping your shots as still as possible if you're just holding your phone. Now you can kind of pivot your body very slowly like this, and very carefully if you want to pan around, but try to keep the camera movement as smooth as possible or it won't be a lot of fun to watch. See what I'm saying? Kind of makes you sick, doesn't it? Now we've been talking a lot about action, but never forget the human element. It's easy just to sit back and capture the action, but you increase the energy and the interest in the video when you actually interact with the subjects you're shooting. For instance, you guys have seen the footage that I get at World Congress parties for years now, right? Well, what makes these so fun isn't my clever editing. It's that I try to interact with the person I'm shooting video of and really pull some energy out of them. I may be behind the camera going, or being all silly, but that helps them give energy back to the camera. Now, in terms of shot length, I try to keep each shot to a minimum of 8 to 10 seconds and say 30 seconds max. That's not a hard rule, just a general guideline. In terms of how much B-roll you're gonna need to submit for each project, just make sure that you have your project well covered. If you've gotten decent shots of all major aspects of a project, 3 to 5 minutes of B-roll may be more than enough. Now, the second major element in a quality documentary are interviews. Ideally, you'd be able to submit the following interviews. Maybe a spokesperson, one person who'll look directly at the camera and tell the story of the project, like I'm doing now. Do a quick interview with 2 or 3 participants. We want to see the joy in the eyes of JCI members as they talk about the participation in the project. And they don't have to be very long. Just ask them a couple of questions about what's going on and why they chose to give their time to participate. Another group to interview are benefactors. Maybe talk to 1 to 3 people who benefit from the work being done. It could be a local government official speaking on behalf of the community, or a mother who benefits from a well being closer to her home. Now, a few minor technical issues to consider when shooting interviews. First, sound is key, right? Your camera's mic will be just fine, the one on the phone, if you're in a quiet place and you're really close to your subject. If you're indoors in a carpeted room where sound doesn't bounce around too much. Or if you're outside in a fairly quiet place, you should be fine. But if there's a lot of background noise, or if your subject is too far away, the audio from your phone won't be great. In these cases, it can be helpful to either use a lapel mic like I'm using right now, if you have one available, or even use the built-in mic on a set of earbuds. Second, keep your camera as still as possible. If you have a little tripod or any phone stabilizer like this, it will help. Now, one note on lighting. You don't want the light on your subject to be less than the light coming from behind your subject. That'll create the effect we call backlighting. For instance, if you're inside, it's best not to put your subject in front of a window. Instead, maybe reverse that and use the light coming from the window as your primary source. If you're outside, it's always best to find a shady spot for an interview and make sure the background behind the subject is also in the shade. Well, that's pretty much it. Look, you guys do the work. You've got the stories. Just submit a thorough yet concise written story, good photos with descriptions, footage of the action, also known as B-roll, and a few interviews. Together, we'll create a show called the Impact Factor that allows us to show the world how JCI members on the local and national level come together to create sustainable, positive change. Guys, I can't wait to work with you on these projects personally. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at any time. Thank you so much.